it would go up to around 45 degrees. And places which are hotter still would have temperatures going up to the extent to the range of 49, 50 or even more. And human body is not attuned to enduring temperatures beyond 50 degrees. Human survival would be at stake. And mind you, today places like Churu in Rajasthan, Bikaner, Jaisalmer, Gwalior, and some places in Madhya Pradesh, in the Deccan Plateau, in Maharashtra, places like Akola in Maharashtra, Bhusawal and Jalgaon, temperatures are close to 50 degrees. In Purnea, from 42 to 50 degrees, let's say 10 years down the line, how would we endure that? Have you ever thought about that? And why does that happen? Now, I'll limit myself to agriculture in that case. As I told you, agriculture is the single largest source of environmental degradation in a passive way. We account for 30% responsibility. We take 30% responsibility for aggravating changing the climatic patterns and weather patterns here. First thing, when you see, have you heard that the ocean beds, the seabed, and the river beds, the land, the ocean bed and the seabed are the largest repository of carbon sink. What do I mean by carbon? Carbon being sunk in the soil bed in the oceans and in the land, and after the oceans, it would be the earth, the land, where would be the repository of the carbon sink. Stored carbon is energy, and released carbon is carbon dioxide and the other greenhouse gases. So, your soil is as fertile, as strong as there is carbon sink. But when you till your soil, when you placed in the gaseous form into carbon dioxide and the other greenhouse gases, which are bad for us, right? So, but then what we do, because we have to feed too many mouths, so what do? We use stimulants to increase, augment agricultural production. If we use, when I tell you we use stimulants, what do I mean? I would mean the chemical fertilizers that we talk about. Because of that. But everything, you must, as you all study economics also, I'm sure. So you must have heard of law of diminishing returns. You have read that? You have read? No? You haven't read about the land law? So, I mean, the girls, are you aware of it? Okay. So when we talk of law of diminishing returns, means ki suppose the first year you score 100 or 100%. As you go to a higher class, when the marking gets difficult, I'm talking from your own example. So the maximum that you would score would be 80%, 70%, 90%, right? For example, in English literature or Hindi literature, I don't think you would score 100 out of 100 or in English literature for that matter. Maths, of course, you can. Physics or chemistry, you can score. It can be a clean sweep. But not in the conventional subjects, right? Similarly, in the agriculture production, because of the use of fertilizers and pesticides, the initial years, you will have very good production. You will be food surplus. But over the years, the soil would get weak. And as it gets weak, you will keep on adding new and new fertilizers to it. Now, this is the production part of it. Fine, everything has its own justification. But let me tell you, nothing is in absolute terms. Everything is relative. Right? So when we embarked on our journey, we said we'll do our best bet forward to ensure that we don't lose the how many of you are aware about the term of carbon credits? Have you heard of carbon credits? That's very popular and common these days. You haven't? You have heard? Okay. Now, because of this, in the UN bodies and the world, there is you have trading of carbon credits. You get money for the carbon that you store in your soil, right? So it's a very fancy word these days. It's in the scheme of things these days now to talk of carbon credits. So when I told you when you plow the soil, you release carbon, stored carbon into the atmosphere, right? And you are plowing your field. So you will have stretches of land totally plowed and then fed with fertilizers and pesticides and sown with all the various crops. Now we are trying to reverse that pattern. We are trying to reverse it. So what we did was we started planting trees in our farm. And we said that monocropping would not be there. So what we did was we went on for a multi-layered farm. It's a vertical farm. So what do we mean by vertical farm? Just imagine in your own lifestyles, in your own life. These days, you would not find too many bungalows or big villas or all that because of the population pressure on land. These days, in Purnea also you have a lot of many developers like Panorama Group or somebody or other groups, and they sell apartments and flats, correct? So now the focus is on high rise. So what do you see? Instead of independent houses with a garden and everything, the buildings are going vertically. So in this limited space, they grow many houses and many families can stay with it. That you are aware of? Same in agriculture. We cannot produce unless you think out of the box. You will not be able to do that. So there's continuous research which is being done everywhere. So it has to be vertical. Here, so when we did it, what we did was, and the foundation of the farming was based on vetiver. Vetiver is khas. Have you heard of khas? Khas is a grass. Is the miracle grass that people talk of. It's the miracle grass. हिंदी में ये कास प्रजाति की घास होती है. उसी का एक स्वरूप है ये. और इसी में गांव के पृष्ठभूमि के कितने बच्चे हैं यहाँ जिनके गांव में भी घर हो? अच्छा, राइट. तो आपने तो वो फूस का घर और थैच्ड हाउसेस भी देखा होगा. वहाँ जो रूफ पे जो चटाई डालते हैं लोग, वो कसाल और डभार वाली जो घास होती है उससे बनाते हैं और चटाई भी उससे बनती है ना. तो ये वेटिवर जो है ये बहुत माने आप ये समझिए कि इट इज अ लाइफ सेविंग थिंग, वन पॉइंट सॉल्यूशन फॉर मेनी थिंग्स इन लाइफ. टू बिगिन विद, व्हेन यू ग्रो वेटिवर, so it's a grass as I told you. So when you the planting is very simple, nibble for 2 inches, 3 inches and just put it, cover it with soil. And the roots start going deep. And what happens is, and then it multiplies. It multiplies 10 times, 15 times, 20 times. So, and the moment you prune it, when the grass is green and goes high, you prune it. As the green grass, it is very good for the cattle fodder, cattle feed. Cows, buffaloes, goats would feed on it and they would give you more milk. They would grow healthy and it's very nourishing for them. When it becomes grey, yellow, then what happens is we use it as a mulch. Mulch is putting you cut the grass and you lay it on the same soil cover. So what happens is, and the roots in the meantime, they go deep into the soil, right? So when the rains come, and because your soil is covered with mulch, and as Coca said, your sunlight should not hit your soil directly. Because if you have direct sunlight on can we stay in direct sunlight in summers? Can we? Why? We'll fall sick. Similarly, earth, soil, it should not be exposed to sunlight. It should be a feeble sunlight which should percolate, filter through the trees, the many trees that you would plant, and that is what is called solar harvesting. We harness even solar light, solar energy, sun energy. So it's a multi-layer vertical forest. So beneath the soil, we have sown turmeric. Now turmeric is a natural pesticide. And above it, we have the vetiver, khas. Above that, we have the citrus, the lemons, Then we have the pink pepper, higher, and all trees are going higher, one after the other like this, like a staircase. Correct? So it goes high, and then we have the orchard, the lychees, the mangoes, the guavas, the papayas, and everything. The tuar, everything everywhere in the same. As I said, plants love to grow in company. So we have diverse crop plants all together, and the myth of the crops growing better in a monocropping pattern or in a spaced manner is not true. So we don't believe in the spacing of the trees. So we send 2 trees high, and the emphasis is when we do that, we want to ensure that the plants that we have grown in our field, they all fix nitrogen, and they help the cause of, and they do carbon sequestration. Carbon sequestration means the available carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is being drawn like a magnet to the soil. Vetiver does it the best. Trees like moringa, you know what moringa tree is? You must have eaten sojan ki sabji. So the tree is moringa, and the sojan ki stick is drumstick. है ना? The moringa tree is also known as the kalp vriksh. It is every part of the tree is a very, very healthy system. From its leaves to the fruits and to the drumsticks, even the bark and the roots, they also sequestrates a lot of carbon in the atmosphere by drawing in the carbon dioxide. So it helps the cause of environment. It's reversing climate change. If all of us take a pledge to do this, the world will definitely pass on the planet to our next generation as a very safe place for them. Otherwise, have you seen how many tsunamis we have had in the last few years worldwide? Have you heard of the bushfires? Have you heard of the forest fires that take place in Canada forest? In Canada at the moment, there are many forests which are burning, and the government is unable to put away the fire. In America, you have the fires, these forest fires. In Australia, we have these forest fires. So all these things, when the solution is very, very simple. It does not need any rocket science. It just needs, and vetiver, when I tell you, when you plant the vetiver and when the roots go deep, what happens is when the rains come, vetiver, all the micronutrients which are under the surface of the soil are brought to the surface, and your soil becomes more strong. And then what we do? We plant trees like arhar. You all have rahar ki dal. You have moong ki dal. All these things, mustard, all these things fix a lot of nitrogen. So you don't need to, there is no need to use chemical fertilizers like urea, potash and DAP and all that. It does away with the requirement because all legumes fix a lot of nitrogen. And all these trees that I was talking about, subabul, moringa and all these, their leaves are very tiny. So they filter the sunlight, and their leaves are a very good source of cattle feed. The cattle relish this food. For them, it's as good as butter chicken that most of you would be liking. So this is the analogy that I'm drawing. And then let me tell you, all these vetiver also it detoxifies the water. It brings the micronutrients, as I told you. It binds this, so it's an extremely good binding agent. So much so that the railways have decided to introduce the growth of vetivers all across the railway lines. You have, if you travel by a train, just next to the tracks, you see a lot of gittis, a line of gittis, a heap of gittis all along the tracks. Why? Because that's a binding agent. It aids in the friction. And just next to it, if you have the risks that we take. Of late, this year, why go too far? This year, in states like Uttarakhand and Himachal, did you see how much floods we had this year? And the number of landslides, whole big hills collapsed. bringing a tail, leaving behind a tail of destruction. Till